Once his clients get beyond a 20% difference, likely they're not making any money, right? So if they have a $100 service and insurance is paying $67, probably is not making them any money. So I think a lot of people listening go, oh, geez, I take plans that pay 53% of my fee. And the only way those places stay in business, Gary and Tanner, is that the people paying full fee subsidize it.
All right, we are live for another episode of Dental Riffs. My name is Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National. We're a dental marketing company that helps people have predictable new patient flow.
I am Tanner Applegate, CEO, founder of Unify. We are the ones trying to make your life easier on your workflows and your day-to-day front office, back office, whatever workflows you guys got going on. We got joining us today a special guest too, Dr. Paul Goodman, who goes by Dr. Nachos sometimes. Paul, love to hear a little bit of intro about yourself.
Sure. Thrilled to be here. I would not be here if my number one dream came through playing in the NBA. But since I'm a failed NBA superstar, I am a dental practice owner with my awesome brother in New Jersey. We have two practices, multiple dentists working with us. Also founded the Dental Nachos community, which is designed to help dentists feel less alone, learn about their businesses. Might date me a little bit like a Mr. Rogers neighborhood for dentists to spend time in. And then also founder of Dentist Job Connect, because I realized that the key for dentists being successful is having the job that they like. I love the culture you guys have built. I follow you guys on social media. Love what you say about your team. So that is the Dr. Nacho world in a nacho shell.
That's awesome. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to bring you here is besides having great fashion taste with your clothes, you have this community on Facebook. And in that community, sometimes it gets a little spicy around the topic of insurance. And should I be a fee for service office, or should I have all these PPOs? And it's like there's almost a battle always going on in that group over that topic. And Tanner actually has a ton of experience with this. And Tanner, I would love for you to share your perspective of that. And then Dr. Nacho, I would love for you to then chime in kind of what you're dealing through and your point of view from the community standpoint.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit. I mean, my background, for those that don't know, is I've built and sold now out of two DSOs, right? So the relationship to insurances are very different as a dental support organization than we are as an individual dentist, right? Which I think is kind of the primary differentiator, right? Where we're approaching insurances, right? So for us, we know that, hey, we've got new associates coming in all the time. They're learning how to become better at what they do every single day. And sometimes just naturally, they're not as talented as they may seem, especially in like the more important, like interpersonal connections, right? And so because of that, as much as we'd love to be able to say, hey, like we're just going to put everybody in here, no matter what their payer mix is or however they were going to pay for this treatment, we're going to give them best in care class. Unfortunately, the doctor's relationship with those patients is a big determining factor of, okay, how well do I actually accept treatment or not accept treatment based off of how well I like this guy, right? And so we found that the need for dental insurance is such that, or gal, I guess I had to make sure I could throw that in there too. And so we found that the need for dental insurance really is just like, it's about patient flow. Like we need to make sure that we're actually having a good patient flow for these newer doctors to build a relationship with these patients. And unfortunately, as much as we wouldn't love it or do love it, I don't know, depending on kind of your angle from this, one of the most determining factors of what doctor do I choose, especially at the beginning, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, you're an expert in this, is what insurance carriers are you in or out of network with? So that's kind of my background on insurance, and we can go deep into like the analysis behind insurance, why we take them, what we don't take them, et cetera.
I want to jump into that. I would love to jump into that. But before we do, I want Dr. Nacho, like, what's your perspective on insurance? So that's Tanner coming from more of the DSO side of it. From your experience as a dentist and also from your group perspective, where are you at with dental insurance?
I mean, recently, my relationship with dental insurance has been adjusted in the beginning of this year, 2022, to being totally out of network. And I say this without any judgment. That's kind of like a vegan saying, how long have you been a vegan? 8 months. I spent 25 years eating steak, right? So I spent 15 years having some relationship with dental insurance. And one of the things that I strive to be helpful with is, much like the processed food of the 1980s, which I consumed, and we realized, hey, that wasn't as healthy as people thought. We should think about that in a different way. It doesn't mean never have Doritos or Fritos. It means just kind of understand how they affect your body. In this case, your body's your practice, and dental insurance can be seen at times like processed food. And I do think that since dental school, which I have a big problem with, does not teach this at all, just like maybe the food pyramid was a total scam from the 1980s, you leave with a very confused, distorted, and I just flat out dysfunctional relationship with the nature of dental insurance. And I don't want to go on too long, and I am not someone who is a nutritionist and knows this, but just like your friend who might say, I can never have a piece of cake or I'll be out of shape. You go, that's ridiculous. But then you have someone else eating cake all the time thinking it's healthy. So my goal with my group is to bring a lot of people together, fee for service, out of network, in network with dental insurance, and just deliver the real education we should have gotten in dental school. Because I want to share, whether you are purely fee for service, your patients pay a year ahead of time, your patients run in and just throw money in your practice, they're still going to ask about dental insurance. I go to my practice and I do a lot of large case consults, and I'll get done telling someone about, fixed staying all the time teeth, removable implant teeth. And I talk about 40,000, 60,000. Some of them still say, what does my dental insurance cover? So it's a question that all dentists and teams are asked. So we may as well spend some time learning how to answer it in a productive way.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Tanner, go ahead, Tanner.
I'm curious to know what the root of the problem is. And this may be a direction that we may not want to go, or either way, but I'm curious from your perspective, Dr. Nacho, what is the root of the problem? Is it something broken with the insurance model, or is there something broken with just dental specific insurance model, or is it maybe that we shouldn't have something between the provider and the patient at all?
I mean, all good questions. Actually, our team meeting this morning, when I talked about this podcast, I shared with my team, and this is the issue, and I talk like to telling stories. It's like, pretend you work with me for 10 years. I mean, our company's only been in business for 4 years, but you've worked with me for 10 years. At the end of the year review, I say, hey, you're doing a good job. Next year, I want you to work just as hard, and I'm going to pay you 12% less. And I think that's more of a morale issue than a money. I think dentists think it's a money issue, but it's really a morale issue. I mean, imagine if you were working and doing full contact arts and crafts on patients that don't want to be there, and people were paying you less for it. It would really destroy your morale. So I think that one of the challenges in the present day is that there's a trend of dental insurance companies decreasing reimbursement for procedures that cost more to deliver. And I think that's where we are in this moment. And there's so many new dentists coming into the dental space that I think the insurance companies, spoiled guac PPO. I don't want any insurance companies to write me mean letters. So they're all spoiled guac PPO to me. As far as that is concerned, that doesn't exist. Maybe they realize that all these new grads will fill the funnel for the people like me who are out of network. I mean, I was in network with 4 to 5 dental insurances. Now I'm in network with 0. And I think our challenge is the model is a problem, and also really the way dentists look at how insurance works inside of their practices. I mean, Gary, you've delivered so much great content on our Facebook group about how you look at your marketing metrics, what things I've thought about. And I think a lot of times, I know I'm using this food analogy, guys, it's like they put calories on the menu. You wish you didn't know, right? Now I'm not getting the firecracking mozzarella sticks. And even my own amazing dad, I used to say, why do we take this teacher plan? It pays us like 50% of our list fee, right? Used to be 70, used to be 60. He goes, oh, we always supported the teachers, which is just a feeling. So I think both sides there, Tanner, is the challenge. And I think we can't talk enough about this topic in a way that helps dentists reframe it and understand what's really happening.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that. So from a marketing perspective, I have a very simplistic look at this is if you're removing patients from your practice because you're no longer going to take their insurance and they are going to leave, you're going to lose some of them. I just need to know what that number is so that way we can backfill it. Yeah. But Tanner had a much more sophisticated look of how he was solving this because it's much more complicated than that internally. Externally, from a marketing perspective, it's pretty simple as long as you have somebody who can actually drive the quantity that you want. So Tanner, would you share how you tackled that problem as you started to remove insurances, or when you would remove, like what caused you to want to remove the insurances, and then what was your process to remove them from your practices?
I think that fundamentally, Paul, you and I are on the exact same page, right? Like we want to make sure that dentists are motivated, inspired, appreciated in a financial way for all the work that they do, right? And so that was kind of, I guess, the underlying factor for us to identify, okay, who do we go out of network with and why? One of the things too is that there is this balance between utilization, right? How much space we actually have to see patients versus how much of it is actually seen, right? And if you look at that, like at the beginning of the day, there should be a percentage of utilization, which is a goal, right? For us, it was always 90% and above, right? If at the start of the day, we were at 100%, great. But then obviously we have the no-shows, and that's a whole nother side topic that we can talk about one day about that whole problem. But at the end of the day, how much percentage of our patient flow, I mean, how much of that utilization was actually seen, right? And so when we get to a point where our utilization is maxed out over a period of time, we end up having to pull some levers in order to dial that back in, right? We don't want to get a new patient to call that we have to book out for 2 weeks, right? We don't want to be setting hygiene appointments 2 months out farther than what we should. And so there has to be this balance of like, okay, capacity with patient flow. Obviously, if you have the extra chair space, fill those up. If you have all the other additional factors in which you can bring in more associates or even partners at that place, bring in more providers. But eventually it gets to a point where you say, okay, we have to kind of control the amount of patients that we have coming into the office. So the first thing that we looked at was these dental reimbursements. And we said, okay, these are the healthy ones. These are the ones that we would go in and say, okay, we need to start cutting them first. So I guess if we really want to get
how did you find
nitty,
the healthy? How did you define healthy?
Yeah, so we did a unique measurement that I've never heard it actually described anywhere else. We just kind of stumbled upon it as I built out our internal kind of BI tool. But really what it was is we had this term that we termed collectible percentage, right? You've heard of collections percentage. Don't get confused between collections percentage and collectible percentage. So collectible percentage for us was we had some type of standardized fee, right? Doesn't matter really what it is, but it was a standardized fee versus what we'd expect to get from the payment from the insurances, right? And then what we actually received. So you take what we actually received divided by the standardized fee, and then you'd be able to compare all insurance companies to each other as a collectible percentage. Okay, so all of a sudden for us, like our UCR still wasn't 100%, right? Our collectible percentage was something more like 70%. And then we'd go in and we'd rank them by insurances to say, hey, we expect that our collectible percentage here was 20%. Okay, and so what that meant was based off of the standardized fee, again, it didn't really matter what that fee was. You just wanted to be able to compare all the insurance companies to it. We wanted to say, okay, this is what we could have expected, but this is what we actually got. And therefore, comparing them to each other, kind of this is how it ranked out. So we took those numbers and go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so Dr. Nacho, as you started to transition out of dental insurance, what was your process? Did you tackle it similar to Tanner, or was it?
A couple things I'll share, and maybe it has values. Like, I feel like I put 15 years into being annoyed by dental insurance, so it wasn't a reactive decision. To me, it was the gap, and I think the gap between our listed fee and what they were reimbursing was widening. I saw this as a problem in 2016, 2017. I wish I acted sooner. My process was I did it incrementally with different plans. I could see the value in doing a lot at once. One of the orange nacho challenges is, I say this all the time, I've done a lot of webinars on this. What are you going to do with your team if you have to only work 3 days instead of 4 days? Maybe you're making the same amount of money, Dr. Salsa, but are you going to pay your team the same amount no matter what? Because that's an uncomfortable conversation. So I think if you reduce your patient volume too quickly, you say, oh, great, now we only have to work 3 days a week. But dentists are spectacularly frugal. That's one of the terms I've come up with, hashtag dentist cheap. And I've been the same way, because do they want to pay someone not to work? But now you have a team that counts on this pay. And there is sometimes a hamster wheel effect of insurances, which can be very demoralizing to the practice owner. But as you said, Tanner, it does get your associates reps, right? Gets your associates reps of procedures. It does keep your schedule full enough to have a hygienist work 4 days instead of 3 days. So my process was do it incrementally over 3 years, have as many in-person, face-to-face conversations with patients as possible. I made videos for my team, and then just realize some people are going to get disappointed. And somebody that you think will never leave your practice leaves in a second. Somebody you think that you don't have a relationship with, they stay. I don't pretend to live inside someone else's head and guess, but you just have to be committed to your plan. And I see how it can be scary replace, also doing other services not related to insurance, I believe is important. In our practice, that's dental implants. In another practice, that could be clear aligners, that could be sleep apnea, that could be cosmetic dentistry. But I was just at this chain restaurant, and I've never heard of it today, for lunch, Chipotle. Have you heard of Chipotle?
It's my favorite
It's great.
restaurant.
Chipotle's great, but rarely do I see people go in and say, reservation for two, it's my anniversary here. So people know what you're getting at Chipotle. I think it's good. It's a chain restaurant. I think it delivers good value, but I don't pick to go there for my birthday dinner. I pick to go to Alves in Philadelphia. So I think a lot of dentists, to just be transparent, want to be in Alves without putting in the work to be in Alves. And I don't think they do it willfully, but you have to deliver really good things if you want people to choose you outside of your insurance. So it's a process to do that. So I think the situation is filled from all different sides with factors that dentists and teams should be aware of. But I'll leave you with this for the next, or not leave you. I did a podcast a few years ago with a dental focused accountant on the Dental Amigos, and we were talking about when you should think about dropping an insurance plan. And this is just a quick summary of that collectible percentage. We said, once his clients get beyond a 20% difference, likely they're not making any money, right? So if they have a $100 service and insurance is paying $67, probably is not making them any money. So I think a lot of people listening go, oh, geez, I take plans that pay 53% of my fee. And the only way those places stay in business, Gary and Tanner, is that the people paying full fee subsidize it. And that to me can be it's happened to me. That's a challenge. We saw all those teachers for all those years. And probably the only way we stayed in business was because we had people paying full fee to subsidize it. And that's an uncomfortable feeling for me.
Yeah. So the first question that was a great breakdown. So the first question that pops into my head as you guys both broke that down, I didn't hear the volume conversation. So Tanner, in your breakdown, like somebody who's like paying you a really close to the full percentage of your fees might only have 3 patients in your office. And then somebody who's paying 53% of your fees might have thousands of patients in your office. So how did you guys order that? So if you're going, okay, we're going to keep the ones that pay us the most, how did you work in volume into that conversation?
We did it by measuring it, right? So again, I'm a data nerd. I love having access to the data. And honestly, like, I think that one of the things too, Paul, that you said is that there's fear associated with dropping insurances, right? I don't know how my patient base is going to react to this. And that was one thing that we wanted to make sure that we were doing, not just kind of out of fear or excitement in either way, in the wrong way, right? So we wanted to make sure that we were calculated in it. So when we would go in and we would drop an insurance, we would say, okay, this was 10% of our patient base, or this was 1,000 patients over the last 6 months, right? And so we knew, okay, this is exactly the amount of patient base that if we were to somehow lose 100% of them, these were the amount of patients that we'd have to make sure that we filled back in order to be at the same capacity level, right? Obviously not from a revenue perspective. If we wanted to hit the same revenue, that was a different measurement. But we really wanted to make sure from a capacity standpoint, again, to make sure that those associates were getting the ability to be able to treat the patients that they wanted to treat. We wanted to make sure that we counted, okay, how many of these patients, if all left, would we need to backfill through marketing?
I think it's right. I mean, I don't remember that book Moneyball about the Oakland A's. They like did a lot of good stuff. I think that's really the most prudent way to do it. And if people are listening, that's the best way. When you're me and, been doing it for 15 years, the brother doing it 10 years and specialist, we have a certain amount of dental skill that maybe we can kind of make some in-game adjustments on the fly. And it doesn't mean that they're right or wrong. I just made coaching adjustments where I said, we took the worst one. It was like 10% of our patient base. And I was like, well, if they all leave, we're still going to be in business. So I probably didn't have as great a calculation as you did, Tanner. And I would recommend people, but I guess since I'd been a dental practice owner for 15 years, there was no way I was going to make a decision where if I had 30% of my patient base, I was going to make that the first plan that we had dropped. So we had done it with the smallest patient base number, like 10%, and the most annoying gap, right? So they lined up, right? And we finally got to the one, which was the biggest amount and the closest to our fees. And that was the toughest one. But I made a decision post-pandemic. And it was really hard. I don't know if you remember 2021, it was a year ago. But it was really hard to get people into your office. I remember we had temperature check bouncers outside like it was a club. We had to have people write 14 forms to get in. So we didn't have the capacity for our sanity. So I made a decision. I was like, I can't have visits with huge write-offs, right? I just can't. And that was the moment where we made the decision.
What insurance was that? Do you mind me asking what insurance that was?
That one, just because I'm always afraid of them getting mad at me, Gary, I'll be glad to
Okay.
tell you
Yeah. Okay.
offline.
That's fine.
Because I know they get, but it was a popular one in our area, and the fees weren't terrible, but it was widening. Here's what happens: it's like they don't raise your reimbursement, you raise your list fee, and this gap gets wider. And I was just, and I think one of the things that dentists don't look at is big gaps for hygiene are big problems to me. People say, oh, just, hygiene's a loss leader, all these cliches, right? They'll do more work later. Well, those fees stink too. Right? So that was my way was not as calculated as your 10. It was more of like maybe a medium-aged coach kind of knowing how to call a game with some gut and some feeling, but insulating ourselves from risk.
Honestly, if I could rant about this, the reason why it wasn't calculated and the reason why nobody's are as calculated as us is because it doesn't exist out there in the industry, and it drives me crazy. We've got all these wonderful BI tools out there, right? You got the Jarvises, the Dental Intels, Practice by Numbers of the world, and they provide you a million different metrics. But when it comes to RCM metrics in general, or specifically around this about dropping insurances, there's nothing, right? There's no way that you can go in and say, what percentage of my revenue is coming from what insurance company? What percentage of my revenue is coming from, or what patient flow percentage do I have?
Which is crazy.
Right?
Like that wouldn't happen in any other industry. That would be at a click of your button that you'd be able to do that. So a lot of people are left using their gut, which is great if you are business savvy and like you, Dr. Nacho, like you're out there figuring it out. But not everybody has that, and that kind of leads me into the next thought that I have. So Dr. Nacho, we'll start with you, and then Tanner, I'd love to hear your answer. Is that okay? So I'm a 30-year-old dentist. I'm fairly new. I'm getting ready to start cutting insurances. How many people are actually going to stay? Because I can imagine me telling the story. I'm going to lose everybody. What is the percentage that ended up staying with you when you cut that biggest insurance, the hardest one?
Well, I plan for zero to stay. I know there's like a consultants, like if you smile enough, I'm fairly funny, I think. People weren't like, we're staying because you're funny, Paul. So I planned for zero. Over the time, we've had 3 shifts in relationships with insurances. First one 6 or 7 years ago, 90% left because they had other good choices in our area. 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say about 50% left. Recently, I would say we've had about 50% stay or 60%. And the reason why is because I think it's very frustrating to find a new healthcare provider of any kind. So I think I pick good timing. I don't think I've done anything special, but I think the hassle factor, if we say, hey, Gary, your hygiene visit, you know how it used to feel like zero to you? Now it's going to be like $73. You go, okay, I like Paul in his office. I'm going to pay the $73. We've had more people say yes to that. And my sense, I'm still going to do the whole year kind of deep dive into it. But my sense is we've gotten like a 50% stay out of this, where the first time we did it, we got mostly what dentists should think about is how many other good dentists in the area take this insurance. Because if there's numbers, they leave. And I don't blame them many times, the patients, because they say, I'm in New Jersey, I'm going down the street to your friend. They are my friend. I say, go, he's a great dentist. She's a great dentist. That brings up one point. Are they happy to get those patients? I always think it's funny when online people go, my neighbor dropped insurance and they all come to my office. I go, does that make you happy? It's like a 50% write-off. It's like getting more annoying friends for your trip, right? So I'm like, that's sort of my take there is plan for all to leave. And recently we've had about 50% success with them staying versus going.
And it goes to say where it depends on how you did it, right? We did it once in the middle of the year randomly where we just were like, okay, we're sick of this. We're going to drop them. And we saw about 20% or so that stayed. And then we did it where we dropped it. We knew the carrier, we knew the kind of insurance plans, we knew the big employers that were there, right? And we dropped it around the time where they had to re-sign up for their next year's insurance plans. And we said, hey, if you guys want to go ahead and just not sign up at all with dental insurance, we have a membership plan if you'd like that,
That's great.
right? And we saw something like 60% that re-signed up with our membership plan that stopped their insurance plan. So it really kind of depends on how you do it. But do a little bit of research too on the employers and say, okay, is dental optional? Can they sign up with it or can they not sign up with it? And then it actually makes it really nice to be able to offer that internal plan because then you can keep them at the higher fees but they still feel like they're getting that, like, hey, this is not insurance, but at least I'm still connected to this office that I'm connected to
Everyone loves the
emotionally.
deal. One of my biggest, people are like, I don't have any regrets in life. That's a ridiculous thing to say. First, I had a George Clooney haircut in college. I looked ridiculous. My parents said it was a dumb haircut. And looking back, it was a dumb haircut. Okay. Secondly, my other regret is not utilizing membership clubs a lot earlier. We track our membership stats. We're at like 304. I want to get to like 1,500. I wish I'd put more effort in that. If I was a newer practice owner, I would put so much effort into bonding with your patients over membership clubs, a totally different relationship than dental insurance.
Okay, so
Yep.
here's a thought that comes to me right away. If I was a newer to dental, I was a dentist. How are you having this? You said it, Tanner, and you said it, Dr. Nacho. You said it's all about the conversation and how you handle that. So we'll start with you, Dr. Nacho. How are you having this conversation with the patients as you're starting to roll it out? Like, what are you actually saying to them? What's your scripting around it? And what worked and what didn't work?
So the people you put into the circle of annoyance, I call, is your front desk team, because they're the ones getting the grief. So one, mindset in life is very important. So just expect people to be annoyed with you. So if you go in expecting them to be annoyed, it's not a surprise. My team said, Paul, great that you shifted status with Spoilguac PPO, but Mrs. Smith, who's afraid to say something to you, is at the front desk. So I have a video, glad to share it with you guys for the show notes. I made a 7-minute video for my team to say exactly what to say. And some of the talking points are, dental insurance works a lot like a coupon. We're glad for you to use your coupon here to help you with dental care. If it's important for you to be in network, we'll be glad to help you find a dentist in network. And when we said our why, it was simple as this. And my good friend Rob Montgomery, dental focused attorney, would say this. He says, when you sign a lease for a practice, you do not want the landlord to have a seat at the table on whether you can sell that practice or not. There are dentists listening to this right now going, oh, geez, I better look at my lease, because there's clauses in leases that allow the landlord to be able to influence your ability to sell your practice. So when Rob helps people with leases, he's like, we need to get this out of here. You know, landlords will try to be overly aggressive. So I use that verbiage and said to our patients, hey, Tanner, at our dental practice, we do not want your dental insurance company to have a seat at the table when making the best decisions about your teeth. That's it. You can use them like a coupon, and some of them get it, and some of them don't. And some new patients stay, and some people have known for 20 years leave. And if you just have very little expectations on the outcome, the conversation becomes more authentic, but it's not easy. You know, my dentist ancestors contaminated this world by taking dental insurances, and we're trying to figure out how to work with this. I mean, they did. They're like, here, I mean, if I said to all of us, you want someone for your business that pays you 95% of your fee, you're like, sounds good. Well, yada, yada, yada from Seinfeld. 25 years later, they're now paying you 55%. So that's my conversation. Dental insurance is a coupon. We'll help you use it here. We don't want them to have a seat at the table and making the best decisions about your teeth.
That's really good. That's powerful. Tanner, and we're going to put that link down below as well. So that if you're listening to this, go to YouTube and you'll be able to get that link. Tanner, did you handle it the same way from the DSO level, working with the doctors, or how did you guys roll that out in that conversation?
Yeah. It was the same thing. I mean, one of the things that you said, Paul, that I absolutely love is the video that you sent to your patients. Looking back, I wish we would have done that. I think that's a great relationship thing. I mean, we did it where we would let them know that we were going out of it early enough for them to have another cycle to come into the office to be able to ask any questions or whatever on the insurance still.
Yeah.
But that was, I mean, we did that. I don't know if I would recommend it or not, because it was still it drug it out more than it needed to, which then ended up causing additional stress in the front more than it needed to as well. I almost kind of wish we would have tried just doing it right away or within the 90 days or whatever that we could legally with the contracts with the insurance companies. But yeah, I love that personal thing. But then, yeah, we always talked about too, it was about we wanted to make sure that the insurance wasn't influencing the quality of care that you were getting. And so when you have a lower reimbursement rate, you also are enticed to take shortcuts like less quality labs or less quality supplies, et cetera, in order to make sure that the business remains kind of consistent. So those were kind of things that we would mention. But again, it also depended on when or how we dropped it. If we were doing it where it was a specific employer that we were dropping, we would message that specifically and just say, hey, by the way, you're up for renewal this month. So if you wanted to switch over, you could.
That's great. That's great. I think this is really helpful. Okay, here's another one that I hear all the time as an outsider. DSOs have special leverage against these insurance companies and they get special treatment because they're able to negotiate at scale versus someone who only has 2 practices or 1 practice. Is that true?
100%. I use that same leverage myself. So one of the things, if you're listening, how you reframe your relationship with insurance, when that is, that's right for you, but maybe there's an opportunity. So in 2016, same Rob Montgomery introduced me to a consultant, and he's like, one of the things I can do is I can help you get better insurance fees. I go, is that a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. I thought I was very connected. I didn't know this thing was a thing. So this literal one-man band, the whole world of insurance is murky. It's complex. It doesn't follow consistent patterns. So they said he utilized our power of equivalent of 4 practices in 2 locations, saying this group will sign up with this plan and here's their fees and we want better than that. And you agree to something. And it was pretty cool. We did it for 5 years, before we went out of network. Nacho sponsors are doing this all the time. I mean, that's transformative. I mean, I kind of just describe it as like if someone took calories out of your favorite food, you would like that, right? If it was like 10% less calories. So DSOs do this because the insurance companies give groups better deals, right? And suppliers do that. And I guess it feels unfair to the solo practitioner, but they probably would do the same thing if they were the insurance company. If someone said, I'm going to give you 100 providers, I want $2 more per pro fee, you'd probably say, sure.
Yeah. So to me, like, isn't this the answer then, is that dental just needs to band together? Because if dental bands together, however that looks, whether it's a DSO doing it or whether it's a collective or something like that, then the dentists really hold all the power, but they have to be on the same page. Am I off on that?
I mean, in theory, you're 100% right, but it's kind of like, in theory, I could try to dunk this basketball, but I've shown no ability to dunk in my life. So I'm someone who deals with a lot of dentists. They always say collusion's illegal, right? You can't collude about fees, dentist. I go, you couldn't get dentists to show up at the same time to the illegal meeting. So I'm like, I got Pilates. Why is this guy more important? Unfortunately, our dental school experience of the Hunger Games has caused us to be insecure loners. So the thought to have dentists bond or band together, I can't get them to show up to a free Zoom thing on time.
Well, okay, so let's do ADA. So we go to the ADA, right? We're dentists, and we go to the ADA, and we say this is the most important thing if we're going to stay in business and continue to support you, ADA. Is that?
I mean, the ADA. I recently was featured on an ADA webinar with one of my sponsors on membership clubs and things. I think the ADA is likely doing more than what dentists know about, but maybe not enough to make them happy. I also think that in some ways, I'm in Philadelphia, and I always like the story of, George Washington and the British, little army versus the big one. I'm not sure if it's reasonable for them to have enough power to make that difference because, I went to an ADA seminar once in 2017, and they sort of said, just because it's unfair doesn't make it illegal. It's your responsibility to sign up. I think the fragmentation of our industry, that's where you see DSOs creating a lot of dominance, if you will, right? They're creating groups, they're getting powers of scale, they are getting people to pay more attention to them. And it would be great if private practices could have something like that. But currently, I don't see dentists behaving in a way to make that difference. But I would love to be wrong on that, Gary. I would love to be wrong on that prediction.
There are individual groups out there that like solo practicing doctors can join. And to prove Paul's point even further, the fact that they exist out there and they're still not as popular just goes to show that you can't get them all in the same boat no matter what, right? Like there are these essentially like insurance negotiation groups where you can come together and say, hey, we represent 300 companies, we're in or out depending on the fee schedules. And it still doesn't get a lot of traction around kind of doctors joining. I mean, in my mind, yeah, theoretically sounds perfect. Let's all go jump in and do it, but it doesn't happen that way.
Interesting. Well, this has been really useful. I'd love to have your guys' closing thoughts on this topic. Anything that we didn't cover, anything that we should have went over to help the audience?
I would add, I really appreciate the chance to share on this. I don't think we can talk enough about reframing our relationship with dental insurance as a dentist, as a team member, as people who work with dentists, as the consumer. I did a big conference the other day, and my opening story was it was 6 a.m. I was at the dog park with Tilly. Another dog mom looked at me and saw my Nacho shirt and said, I need to find a new dentist. My dentist of 30 years just dropped my insurance plan, right? It's like 6 a.m., right? So I'm like, I could be like, oh, that stinks, or I could stand up for dentistry. And I looked at her and I said, I totally get how that's frustrating, but would you continue to work for a company that paid you less each year? And in that moment, she was just sort of stunned, right? And whether she finds someone in network or doesn't, I think it's time for us, the starfish story this summer, that story of the starfish on the beach, the kids throwing them back. Man says, you're not going to save all of them. He threw one back and said, I saved that one. I strive to be that person. At 6 a.m., I could have drank my cold brew, Gary, and just sort of mumbled and said, yeah, that stinks. But I say, I'm going to annoy myself for the good of dentistry and tell this consumer how this insurance works. And I think that's just my message to your audience, is that all of us need to reframe our relationship with this so that our profession can continue to be successful.
That's awesome. Tanner, you got any closing thoughts for us?
Oh, I'm trying to contemplate whether I want to do this or not, but I'll play devil's advocate a little bit right here at the end. If you think about, though, from a insurance's perspective, what has insurance done for dentistry? And I think if you look at one of my favorite things is I talk to other DSO founders when they're in these like collaborative environments, right? Like they can literally be down the road from each other, competing in the exact same markets, and they're sit there and giving advice to each other. And the feedback is our competition is not each other. Our competition is the patient that doesn't actually come in at all, right? So for me, insurance companies, though there's a lot of issues that I have personally with them, that I have as a business, et cetera, I think that they do a lot of decently good for our industry, because what it does is it gets in front of the patient and it convinces the patient to begin their relationship with dental, right? I think if we didn't have dental insurances as part of like an employer package, I think we'd see a lot less frequency of patients visiting the dentist to begin with, because as an industry, I think that we don't do enough job standing up for ourselves and the importance of what we do. And so I think of like the Got Milk campaign of the 90s, which completely revolutionized the relationship with milk. We have to do something similar to it in dental, where we're not relying on insurance to be the voice of the dental industry. Right now it is. So either we need to change our marketing campaign and the importance of dentistry in general, or we need to, I guess, in turn, thank and appreciate what the insurance companies have done, because they get patients in the door that otherwise wouldn't be.
Good points. There's a lot of thoughts about that. As a healthcare practitioner, getting people to come in and see you to be healthier is a good thing, but being able to keep your business in business, to be able to keep doing that, is a whole nother thing. So I think they're intertwined, and there's a lot of good points of them coming in for preventive care that they might not come in for elsewhere without it.
Yeah, I think at a higher level too, there's a lot of education, because as a patient, I think dental insurance, I think, oh, it's like my health insurance. It's like my car insurance. If I get in an accident, it replaces my car. Patients do not understand that that's not how dental insurance works. I tell people all the time when they bring it up to me, I'm like, that's not how the dental insurance works. It's like you said, it's a coupon. And I think that's really, if you started there, if we could get everybody to agree on that and say, yeah, it's just a coupon book and you get $1,000 and you get some discounts here and there, but you're really not going to get the best end result that you want from this insurance coupon books. I think that would radically change how people view it. But right now, everybody, I did for years, I thought I had dental insurance like health insurance, and it's going to fix all my problems. And then when it comes time to fix your problems, it actually doesn't. And I think if everybody could get aligned on that, and again, going back to like the ADA or whatever that group is, and getting that message out there, it would actually, I think it would do a lot of good. I mean, to your point, Tanner, the Got Milk commercial was a total lie. I mean, it wasn't good to drink milk all the way up into those later years, but it sold a bunch of milk, eating sugar cereal in the morning. Somehow the cereal industry confused moms to give their kids sugary cereal with tons of additives and all these dyes. And people believed it. People are feeding their kids this stuff before they go off to school. I ate it every single day and it was awesome. But now I'm like, no, you guys don't eat that stuff. But I tell my kids, because they can't focus in school if they eat it. And so we have something that actually can make a difference and is actually true, that it is a coupon book. Imagine the impact that would have if that was championed and people actually got on the same page with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is really good. This helped me. So I'm sure if I can understand dental insurance a little bit more, I'm sure for our audience, it'll help them. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Dr. Nacho, where can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Really appreciate that. They just go to dentalnachos.com. We have all of our stuff listed on our website, or dentistjobconnect.com. Would love to hear from anyone, any of your listeners. Love connecting with dentists and humans.
Awesome. All right. You guys have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks so much
Bye-bye.
for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Awesome, guys. Once his clients get beyond a 20% difference, likely they're not making any money, right? So if they have a $100 service and insurance is paying $67, probably is not making them any money. So I think a lot of people listening go, oh, geez, I take plans that pay 53% of my fee. And the only way those places stay in business, Gary and Tanner, is that the people paying full fee subsidize it.